Well, hello, Mad Cats, and welcome back to the Miscellaneous Debris podcast with me, your host, the Mad Chatter, Ryan MK. That's right. welcome, welcome back, and thank you for joining. And do not forget to check the social media. The Twitters, the Grams at RMK Madness. That's where I throw all my stuff, the podcast stuff, the video stuff. I got all sorts of things going on. Shortly, probably next week, I'll have another edition of Mad Cooking with the Chatter. That's right. Hope y'all enjoyed the first one. I did a recipe on just some homemade roasting potatoes, and it was good stuff, good stuff. And if you don't know, that's just a little cooking thing I'm doing to kind of help my oldest son, who's 20 something. And yes, I know, shocking that someone that looks like this could have a 20-some-year-old. I know, it's amazing. Yeah, right. But I do, teen parent here. That's right, I was. But so it's mainly for him, but I decided to go ahead and post them too because they're fun. And maybe some of you have kids that need cooking advice. But regardless, I also have my Mad Chatter's crazy shit about space. You have to check that out. The new episode will be coming out this week along with this pod. That's right. Talking about dwarf planets this week. The debut episode, we talked about the crazy moons that are in this solar system. And now we're going to hit up the dwarf planets. That's next. And yes, at some point, we're going to venture outside of the solar system, because that's where shit really gets crazy. Sorry, gotta shake up the tea real quick. But also, you could check out my Mad Chatters What the Fuck of the Week, weekly What the Fuck. It's good stuff. We did one, the debut in the last week. That was one on The Big Lie, which, as you know, is all the crap going on with the apparent, election that was fraudulent, they say. Biden's not the real president, they say. And they're recounting shit in Arizona, they say. Whatever. Talk a little bit more about that later, a little bit. But yeah, so you can check out all my stuff on the social at RMK Madness. Check all that shit out. But I hope you've been well since the last pod, since we last chatted. It's been good here at the Madhouse, MK. Really has. We're in our last week of school. Today will be the last real work day, and then tomorrow is just a fun day. So we're at the end. Yesterday had a lot of fun. It was nice out. We had some days of storminess and whatnot, and we get a good chunk of that here in the Colorado, in the Denver area. We get some of that, and we've had some days of that recently, but it was awfully nice out yesterday, and so I had the kids come out and help me wash the car. They enjoy helping me wash the car. It's a fun family project. And then what they didn't know was that I filled up the squirt guns. And I also loaded up a big load of grenade water balloons. That's right. And as we're finishing up the car, I fucking unloaded on those little dudes. And then, of course, I let them just rail on me the rest of the time, basically. So I was thoroughly soaked by the end of the ordeal, but it was a lot of fun. They like playing with the water, which I don't blame them. I enjoy playing with water too. Pardon me, have to relight the joint. Went out on me. It does that when you don't hit it consistently enough. But it's been good. Have that going on. And then today we have the 4-year-old's birthday. And it's actually his birthday today. And we got some cool stuff for him. Some Jurassic Park toys, some Minecraft stuff, because that's what he's really into right now is Jurassic Park and dinosaurs, Minecraft, cars. Yeah. And not just any cars, the Disney cars, of course. So kind of out of the, Paw Patrols type of stage into a lot more adult stuff. Not adult, but the older kid shit. some stuff I can get on board with. I'm all on board if you're into Jurassic Park. And I think me some Minecraft. It's not bad stuff. But this 4-year-old. So, and I'm not trying to brag here, but I got pretty intelligent kids. We've tried to do our best with them and help expand their knowledge, but they both, had a little intelligence to begin with and a little ability to catch on. And we've kind of, just pushed that further, trying to help develop that. And this 4-year-old who's just turned 4 was 3. This little guy is sitting there telling us he's scared to grow up. He doesn't want to grow up. He doesn't want to poop in the potty. He doesn't want to eat vegetables. He doesn't want to grow up. Now, I could tell, because for the past couple of years, it's been pretty evident he enjoys being the baby, and he really is the true baby. He's my youngest, and the youngest out of all my mother's grandchildren. Our one brother doesn't have any kids. There's a good chance with the position and state he's in, that's never going to come. But you never know. You never know. I shouldn't speak negatively. That's a whole nother situation. One of these pods we'll get into addiction. And, because there's a lot behind that for me, because I've been through it. I've had family members go through it. My dad, in part, died because of his addiction. Not all, but in part. And, my younger brother is currently severely struggling right now. And it's unfortunate, but there's also not a whole lot we can do till he's ready to, help himself. So maybe next pod, if there's not a whole lot going on, we'll get into a little bit of discussion, about addiction and just kind of, my journey through everything with my own personal addiction and what I've seen in my family and what's going on now. And I don't know, if anything, I enjoy talking about it. It's healing in a way as far as my story and my family's part of things. And I find some healing in it. And I find that, it could possibly be beneficial for someone else out there. And that's for me, that was a big thing, because to make it through the first part of sobriety, which is the hardest, and don't get me wrong, it's shit you got to fight on a daily basis. That shit don't ever go away. You don't magically just say, oh, I'm cured one day. No, addiction is something you got to deal with the rest of your life. Now, it's gotten to the point for me where I don't really think about alcohol. And some days are hard, but my brain doesn't really go to alcohol anymore. Whereas early on in sobriety, even when I got through the toughest parts, it was like I'd have a shit day and my brain would go, what would be nice? But it's not really like that anymore. So, I had a lot of help on the way. I learned a lot of things, gained a lot of knowledge, wisdom, and took on a lot of advice. So I don't mind talking about my story, my family story in that sense, because it could be helpful for somebody else out there listening or watching or whatever. So I think we'll get into that in the next pod or two. I think I've mentioned it before and I've intended on getting to it, but just fucking haven't. So, but otherwise, yeah, we got this birthday party coming up. Dinosaurs in Minecraft, basically. And it should be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun today. We're going to have a good time. And then we've got the 6-year-old. He'll be turning 7 next month. Man, these kids are growing up too fucking fast. Too fast. Much faster than Baby Yoda, because that dude's like a baby at 50. So I finally got to watch The Mandalorian. Just said fuck it one night. Kids and I and the wife were all sitting down for some pizza for dinner, and it was like, fuck it, Dad's picking out The Mandalorian. And I got to tell you what, I knew it was going to be good. I heard it was going to be good. I fucking knew I would love it, but it still impressed me. I really enjoyed just everything. The first episode with the bounty droid and just everything. I mean, humor, action, fun. I mean, the second episode, when what are the little guys called, the Jawas? He's trying to get himself on their vehicle and he's like hanging from it and throwing him off, and then he gets on top of the vehicle and they knock him down. Like this is really how Star Wars should be, man. All the Star Wars should be made like this. Like it just feels like some of the like the main episodes, the main movies, like they just get too little cheesy, too little mainstream. Whereas this stuff is so good. It's like the Rogue One, and I'm gonna get my brother Taco Cat, my youngest brother. I'm gonna get him on. He's a big Star Wars fan like me. I'm gonna get him on to talk some of this shit. But I'm gonna be honest. Sorry, I had to light the joint again. I'm gonna be honest. I honestly think he's waiting for me to finish the Mandalorian or catch up on it, before we get into it. Maybe do a little preview of Mandalorian season 3. So I'm halfway through season 1, need to get caught up, but just the characters, the story, the theme music, it's all great. It's all wonderful. I love it. And, I'd like to see them do more. Like, if they're doing all these little side things, I'd like to see them do some more with Sith Lords, or even in the main movies involves. There's so much cool shit there. If you go back and read, like, some of the books from the extended universe, like the Darth Bane trilogy, the Darth Revan trilogy, the Darth Plagueis book, all that stuff, learning about how there used to be Korriban, a Sith planet, and there was a Sith academy there, and there was just Sith lords all over, Sith masters, Sith apprentices, and it was like a school, and they had tons of them. And then it was Darth Bane who wanted to bring back the rule of two and get rid of all it. Just such a good there's such good lineage and history to that. And if you've listened to my stuff for a while, I'm a bit of a villain fan, right? And Star Wars has some of the best villains. Give me some more background on all that shit. I just love it. And I love the books. I'd like to see more of it on screen. That's all. Give me some more Sith Lord stuff. I would love something done on Darth Bane because his story is really good. And it would show a lot of that with the past, with the Sith Academy on Korriban and how it changed and how things went from, an army of Sith to the rule of two. It would cover a lot of things. And, oh, man, I'd love to see something on that. They should do that shit. Speaking of Star Wars, Space Wars, wars in space with stars. I was watching this recent episode of NASA's Unexplained Files, and it kind of ties into some shit that's going on, like, as of recent. But the episode was about they always have a few different topics on this show. And one of the main topics was about this Chinese spy that worked for NASA. And he Americanized his name, Greg Chung, and worked for NASA. And he just was otherwise a model citizen, really, except for in secret, he's sending all this information about our space program to the Chinese. And it turns out he's not the only one. The FBI have busted a few guys sending information to the Chinese. It was a big deal. It was like a spy ring. Because if you think about it, going back to the Cold War, we don't hear about France's space program or England's space program. Even then, China. It was the United States and Russia. For years, it was just us. Race to the moon. Race to, So it's pretty interesting shit that all of a sudden, the Chinese space program has now put all these different programs into works. They've landed on an asteroid. They've landed on the dark side of the moon. They are now on Mars. We just fucking landed on Mars. It's crazy. And one has to think, the Chinese space program was not really relevant. And now all of a sudden, you look at it and really Russia and China are ahead of us. mean, because they have like capabilities of attacks on satellites. There was a thing about Russia with a potential um, kind of magnifying glass type thing in space, that they had some stuff about this, and now they've got some weird thing floating around up there, and people are like, they're not trying that magnifying glass shit, are they? And I know once upon a time back in the day when I first got into aliens, UFOs, all that cool stuff, I mean, there was a lot of good videos out there that had stuff, and there's some really good videographers out there who can tell you kind of like how legit the video is. And I remember one was of it, I believe it was taken from a spacecraft, and it showed like just the curvature of Earth, and then it showed like this ball of light going across the screen, and then it like right above Earth, and then it appeared as though from the Earth a laser shot out at it, because it like zipped off, and it took a 90-degree angle. People tried to explain it off as space debris. It's like, no, space debris doesn't move like that. It'd make a 90-degree turn and then accelerate. That's not what space debris does. Get the fuck out of here. And then what was that came from Earth? And it turns out the location of where, if you look and study the video, it was coming from Australia. And we used to, I don't know if we still do, but the United States had a base there for this like Star Wars missile defense system or laser defense system. So I don't know, man. It's crazy. There's a new episode of Space's Deepest Secrets out now. It's about the whole Space Force coming together, and it's I watched a little bit of it, have to finish it, but there's just so much crazy shit there, because that is kind of the next frontier of all of that, right? Is that how Star Wars fucking starts? Like in general, like it's already started, because I mean, you got to think in some ways we're kind of at war with Russia and China. And when it comes to the space race, we've kind of lost a bit of the edge. Yes, we have. What crazy shit. Those two countries really worry the fuck out of me sometimes. Do they worry anybody? First of all, they're huge. Lots of people, lots of technology, capability, and they have asshole leaders. That's usually not good. Usually not good. Now, also not good. This shit's still going on. Israel, Hamas. They asked for a ceasefire. Israel declined. See, I had talked about on last pod how, neither side's innocent, right? But there's a reason some of these things are happening. I blame part of it on religion, but there's some shit going on in Israel that's not good. And there's some treatment of Palestinians in general. Not good, man. Not good. And woman, not good. And it was a little disappointing when Biden had came out and said, we have to, or we're going to support Israel and what they're doing. And then he's kind of changed his tune, because now he's stated that he wants there to be a ceasefire as well. Oddly enough, even Putin in Russia is like, you got to go killing your citizens or innocent citizens. Like, these fucking strikes, you got to stop them. They're killing people, civilians. And weird coming from Putin, right? But Biden stepped in and said the right thing. He could have said more, but at least he said that, because he wasn't saying that not too long ago. And that's what's needed. These Palestinians, I mean, again, not innocent, but this is not right what's going down right now. And when it comes down to it, if you go through the history of this, the biggest thing they want, like, they kind of just want what Israel has, right? A place to call their own. But even today, still, Israeli air attacks on Gaza, all in the name of self-defense. They say that, and there's just so much of this shit going on in the world. Look at that situation, Russia, China. It's just fucking crazy. Kyrie Irving, blah blah blah. Just butchered his name. I don't know how. It's not that hard. Fucking Kyrie Irving. Now, I've been somewhat of a fan of his. Like I like watching him play ball, and I do like that he's different and he's kind of out there. He lost me when he admitted he's one of the flat Earth people. Because if you really want me to get someday, I'll get back into that again. That's a good topic to bring up. Oh, I don't know, once every few months on the pod because holy shit, people are fucking stupid. But anyway, Kyrie Irving, he's been talking a lot about, big advocate obviously for Black Lives Matter movement, uh, racial justice, equality, social like he's behind that, and he's talked about last year when it came down to COVID, playing in the bubble, and he's like, man, should we even be playing ball right here, like right now, like we got a fucking pandemic, we got some crazy shit going on in the streets, like he had a point, and he still has a point now. Like I always say, people talk about sports and things like that as an escape, and I'm like, I don't fuck escape. We don't need that. Like, it's fine to distract yourself occasionally, right? You need to take a break, a mental break, think about other things, have fun, enjoy yourself. Fuck yeah. But I don't want to escape and forget about the shit that's going on in the world, because sports isn't everything. Movies, entertainment, podcasts, none of this shit is that. So much more going on. And, some might condemn him for saying that he's not committed enough to playing ball and blah, blah, blah. I applaud him. It's in this regard. I mean, really, I've never minded anything Kyrie said, except for the flat earth shit. That's a big no-no for me. Sorry, Mr. Irving. Mr. Kyrie, I otherwise think you're pretty cool and a good basketball player, of course. But this flat earth shit, if you truly believe, if you're truly into that flat earth shit, I'm sorry. But I got you on this. I do. Because I believe it too, man. It's the truth. You insert anything else, like with basketball, football, hockey, soccer, movies, shows, entertainment, cars, like possession, like so much shit is far less important than relationships, things important going on in the world. And he's right on that. People need to realize that. I mean, whole lot of selfishness, particularly in this country right here. But dial it back. We'll dial it back. Boom, I got the gnat. Sorry. Dial it back. I'm going to try and lighten the mood a little bit, because while I do agree with Kyrie, it is okay to think about other things, right? To get into other things. And like I said, I've really enjoyed watching The Mandalorian, and that's been a lot of fun. We talked a little Star Wars. It doesn't have to always be about the important stuff, but I just feel like you got to keep it at the forefront of your brain. I don't like the word escape, as someone who's been through addiction. And again, I'll talk about this shit at some point. The more I talk about it, the more I'm thinking I'm going to do it next pod. But it's escape. That's not what you want to do. Booze, drugs, that shit's an escape. An escape from reality, an escape from your problems. But see, the thing is, you can escape. All that shit's going to be there when you go back. Just like you can escape to sports, but all that shit's going to be there right there when you get back. So better to really focus on the important shit, right? And not worrying about escaping, but occasionally taking a break letting your mind rest from the other stuff. This idea you need to escape, I just don't think it's a healthy way to look about it. Or look at it. Look about it. What the fuck are you talking about? Look about it. Maybe that's what we should call the podcast episode. Look about it. Except for that we almost have to call it something to do with Kyrie Irving, right? Because we've been talking Star Wars. Right, you are. See, now I'm totally fucking up Yoda. Right, Kyrie is. Right, Kyrie is. No, I can't do Yoda. What do I? My Trump impersonation was way better than that shit. That was. I apologize. That was awful. I'm honestly, full transparency, never tried Yoda before. I'm not trying to make an excuse here. I promise. Because you know me, I own my shit. But I have never. That would be the first crack at the old Yoda impersonation. So could have been better, could have been worse. But that said, let's go ahead and get into Mr. Kyrie's sport. Kyrie, right? He is. Right, Kyrie is. There you go. Right, Kyrie is. Let's talk about some basketball and the play-in tourney, the new play-in tourney, the new play-in tourney thing that we got going on. Let's get into that a little bit. It's fun. It's interesting. So if you don't care about the sports, we're going to take a quick break, come back and chat about it. Just go for 10 minutes or so. We'll be done with sports and on to something else. But first, I take a quick break and we be back in just a second. Yes. I am a huge sports fan. I really am. I do. I enjoy sports, most sports, really. I'm not big on golf. I like miniature golf or goofy golf, if you prefer, which I kind of prefer. Goofy golf is just fun to say, but not really big on golf. I could give two fucking shits about NASCAR. Never have, but I really don't anymore. But man, I'm a big sports fan, and I really enjoy having the NBA playoffs, the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs going on at the same time. It's a lot of fun every year, and we're right back at it. And this year, the NBA has introduced this new addition to the playoffs, this play-in tourney, and it basically takes it expands the playoffs from 8 teams to 10 teams, and then it takes seeds 7 through 10, and through a couple of games, and through a series of games, I'll say, it determines the true 7 and 8 seeds. So 2 teams will go into the full tournament, playoffs, and to the full big bracket, and 2 teams will go home. So it's kind of an interesting thing. I've enjoyed it thus far, how it started out. It's added some intrigue, I would say. Sorry, I keep swatting the air because we got these fucking gnats. Because of the weed that's being grown, right? Plants getting some gnats in there. Sometimes they're a pain in the ass. Although we just did add a fly strip. So that should help take care of some of that. Anyway. I digress. Let's get back to the basketball. So the play-in tourney started a few nights ago, and you had Boston taking on Washington. And Boston wins. They are the 7th seed in the East. They will play the Nets in the first round, which that should be a very exciting matchup. I like that matchup. Boston's playing pretty good. Although I'm not sure what the hell happened and how they went down to the 7th seed, but they got to play the star-studded Nets, Kevin Durant, the aforementioned Kyrie Irving, James Harden. So that should be an interesting series. And then with the other Eastern game, you had the number 9 Pacers, number 10 Hornets. Pacers won that game. So they'll play Washington, who lost against Boston. And they will play for the 8th seed. And that game's tonight. Then in the Western Conference, you had the Grizzlies beat the Spurs. So they were moving on to that 8th place game, that 8th seed game. And then you had the Lakers versus the Warriors. Fun game, close game. I feel like the Warriors should have won it, but they didn't. The Lakers won it. So LeBron, Anthony Davis, Mr. Unibrow, they move on to face the number 2 seeded Phoenix Suns. Phoenix Suns. That was a little Sean Connery. Phoenix Suns for you. That's right, another terrible impersonation, but that's quite all right. Let's move on. Lost my damn train of thought. So you got the Lakers and the Suns. All right. And then you've got the Warriors going up against the Grizzlies to determine the 8th seed of the West. And that game will be tomorrow night. And then you'll have some playoffs getting going. It's going to be fun. I'm excited. NBA playoffs is awesome. The NHL playoffs started already. It's been crazy. It's been so much fun. I got to tell you, the way they're kind of doing something new too. But this is more, I don't know if this is going to be a permanent thing. They're like a high-pitched. Hello. Felt like there was a high-pitched. I don't know. You know what? Full transparency. I'm not going to edit any of that shit out. I have ringing in my ears really bad. Tinnitus, I think it's called. Largely from years of playing drums in heavy metal bands without wearing earplugs. Probably not the greatest idea. Anyway, back to the basketball. Yet again, we keep getting sidetracked here with gnats and tinnitus, tinnitus, ear issues, ringing. Anyway, interesting matchups in hockey. It's been a lot of fun. But before we do, no. I got to get back to basketball first of all. So we talked about the matchups for the 8th seed. That'll be, again, tonight and tomorrow night. And then you got the playoffs going. But we got some good matchups, okay? I mentioned the 7-2. Those should both be good series, the Lakers, Suns, and then the Nets and Celtics. But both of the 3-6 matchups, the 3 seed versus the 6 seed, because in the West you have my hometown Denver Nuggets. Let's go, Nuggies! Versus the Portland Trailblazers. So that should be a hell of a matchup. And then on the other side, you've got the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat, which should be a fucking excellent matchup. And then you also have Dallas, the Mavericks versus the Clippers. That should be great. Doncic. I fucking love watching that, dude. Dallas kind of reminds me. I was talking about this with my buddy Aaron on our Dynasty Fantasy Football pod. The Dynasty Wonderland podcast. So if you're into that sort of thing, fantasy football, please check that shit out. Same place you can find this. But we were discussing the NBA playoffs. And it's kind of like the Mavericks are kind of like the Packers, of the NBA, because they went from this great European legend, Dirk Nowitzki, to Luka Doncic, who is now becoming in his own right this great, foreign star. It's amazing. I fucking love it. I enjoy the basketball. But back to what we were saying, getting into the hockey, it's been crazy. What I was saying before I got all sidetracked was this year they're doing what they did was partly because of the travel restrictions, well, in large part. And what they did was they made it so that there was different divisions, and all the Canadian teams were essentially in one division. And this has worked out well for, obviously, again, travel restrictions and all of that. But it's also made it so that the divisions, the way they're doing the playoffs, the first two rounds of the playoffs are just divisions. So the top four teams from each division make one corner of the bracket. So this makes for interesting hockey, as teams in each other's division, they've played each other a crap ton of times already. So there's some bad blood. There's there's some anger. And then you get them in the playoffs, and holy shit, there's been so much aggression, so much fighting. Teams are just, yeah, they do not like this was a good idea. I'll put it that way. It's highly entertaining. Teams hate each other. But excuse me. So the divisional aspect of this has just made the fighting so much more intense. And then you have the Bruins and Capitals series. Boston's up 2-1 in that series, but every fucking game has gone into overtime. This last game, the third game last night, that went to double overtime. So they're just going at it. The Avalanche, whew, they're up 2-0 in their series. Go, Avs, go. Go, Avs, go. My boy Nathan McKinnon on fire. Love me some Avalanche. I think they got a good chance to take the whole thing this year. I hope they can do it. Hope they can do it. Hope they can do it. But it's not that important, right? If they don't. Again, I love sports. I'm diehard. I talked about my fandom of sports, and a little bit on the last pod, and just talking about like how I've gone from growing up as a kid. I didn't really have any teams except I kind of like the Nuggets, but like the Avalanche, the Rockies, they weren't around when I was still a kid. And then I kind of got out of sports for a little bit, got back into sports, and again, my mom's Colorado teams, my dad's Chicago teams, and I'm living in Iowa, no pro sports teams. And I just end up getting into the Vikings, and then I start liking all the Minnesota teams, and coming back home, being in around this area again. I just can't help but root for the Nuggets again and get into the Avalanche. And because I've always like partly rooted for the Denver teams. And so I just, yeah, I love fucking sports. And not only has it kind of been there for me in ways, but it was also something that like my dad and I just, that was one of my favorite things. Man, I got to watch like a few of the second trilogy, I'll call it, of Jordan's Bulls runs, where he three-peated, the Bulls three-peated. And I got to watch so much of that, those three runs, that whole three-peat, with my dad, just watching the Bulls do it again and again, and how much he loved Dennis Rodman. And, so there's a lot of good things with sports, but it's also not the most important shit in the world. This thing's a lot more important. I love sports, Star Wars, all that shit. But again, right, Kyrie is. He's right. Kyrie Irving's right. Right, he is. I mean, again, think of the shit I've talked about on the pod. You got shit with China and Russia. I mean, if you just look at China and look deeply into the camps that they're doing, that they claim are re-education camps. See, it's so crazy. You just have to read into this. And I'm sure I'll get into it. I've talked about it previously. I'm sure I'll get into it again. And you look at China, how they censor their internet. The people can't just find anything and everything they want. No. There's a lot of censorship there. Not a great leader. Not a great leader. And then Russia, I mean, they'll basically fucking take you out if you're causing a ruckus, if you're talking shit, even. Like, it's just, you would think at some point we'd all learn our lesson. We wouldn't let history repeat itself. But somehow, these people are getting into power and still getting on the same track as some of these fucking assholes of the past. I don't understand. I don't understand how it's happening. And it could still happen here. Don't get, and I hate to sound all like, I know people like to use the term like fear mongering and shit like that. I'm just being real. Again, when you look at what was going on with Hitler before World War II, he was arrested specifically for starting a coup, like for raising it, for like treason. And there's already some evidence with some of the shit with Russia. There's been some treasonous acts. Then you look at the Capitol siege, the Capitol riot, you look at that. And again, you think about election stuff. Like right now, this motherfucker, the election lies, downplaying the coronavirus, that's treasonous shit. And there's still lots of Republicans and Trump himself pushing that big lie, and then Republicans are pushing these fucking voter integrity laws, which are really just voter suppression laws. That's right. And not all, but there's some pushing back against Trump. Like Trump put out some recent statement that somehow looks like it found its way on Twitter. But in it, he's talking about how Maricopa counties, which that's the one being audited, recount, that their whole database had been erased. Well, on Twitter, Stephen Richer, who's a Republican and the county recorder in Maricopa County, he gets on and says, this shit is unhinged. Like he's fucking unhinged, man. He's like, I'm looking at the data right now. We cannot indulge these insane lies any longer. Not for the party, not the country, blah, 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 blah. But it's funny any longer. So you were okay indulging in the lies before? Like I mean, it's insane that they're even doing it. It's almost like, do they forget that they were like trying to cheat the election? I mean, let's be honest. Trump spread tons of false information about mail-in voting. That DeJoy fucker was hired for the post office. He made all those changes, cut down on people, got rid of machines, like ballot drop boxes. Like he was making it even more difficult to vote, just like all these Republicans are doing with their new laws. And should Trump win again, yeah, there's no way he'd fucking win the popular vote. But who's to say those Republicans won't stir up some shit and try and pass voting laws with, hey, to where basically if they don't like the result of the election, they can just go ahead and change it. This is all going down a slippery slope. And it's scary. Like, I'm sure so many people were thrilled to get Trump out of office and feel like that's it. And maybe it will be. Maybe he goes to prison, because it does sound like there is some bad shit against him. But maybe he goes away and goes to prison. And then after that, things can kind of chill out, calm down around here. The problem is, maybe Trump's not the one we should be worried about. Maybe he just laid the foundation, put down the blueprint. And someone who is a lot more charismatic and intelligent might come along, pick that up, and run with it. And that's scary, man, because it's kind of shown over the past handful of years. There's definitely some cracks in our democracy, I would say. Cracks in democracy. And really, you're looking at that again all over the world. It's not even just here. Excuse me. But all these assholes, like I've said before, so worried about gun laws and things like that, they're ignoring what's happening with the First Amendment. They're ignoring the voting laws. One asshole on Twitter even acted like encouraging people to vote was some form of voter fraud. Like, once again, the people that call us sheep. It's ridiculous. Oh, the games they could play. That's why I say Kyrie's right. Because there's so much important shit, particularly at this time. I mean, there's if you just look at our country alone, there are way too many people that don't give a shit about climate change, don't give a shit about the poor, don't give a shit about, I mean, it's just, the list goes on and on. It's not in a good way. And you see, where's the democracy in a place such as China? Not even just democracy. Where's a sense of right for the citizens? And they just follow along. They don't. Most of them, like, people talk about Jackie Chan and how awesome an actor. I used to love me some Jackie Chan. He was funny. He did some cool shit. He's also a woman beater, and he's very much a pawn for the Chinese government. And it's just unfortunate what's going on over there. And then you look at Russia. Russia's always kind of been up and down, right? But man, it's the world just feels like it's getting a little bit scarier, So perhaps sports shouldn't be the most important thing in the world or anything like that. It should be about, spending time with your families, trying to do the best you can to provide for your families. Then you got to start thinking about, what can we do to help the world? And more people need to start doing, what can we do to help the world with climate change, with all the starving people in the world, with citizens living unjustly. It's like, if we all came together, we could do so much. That's why those in powers like to. And it's crazy. It was never supposed to get like that here, because it's supposed to be a democracy. But they've at least got one party by the that's so. But hey, who knows how this will all play out? All we can do is take it a day at a time, folks. One day at a time. And you'll get how much I love that saying when we probably next episode, when we talk about addiction. But it's enjoy stuff, enjoy life, of course. You got to. That's what we're here for. But also keep in mind what's most important. Enjoy life in the areas like, man, for example, with just a simple car wash with your kids. Hey, that was such a fucking blast. Got to take the time to enjoy life because we don't know when it's going away. We don't know. You don't know. Sorry, I keep taking a drink. I got a little scratch in my throat. It's like I keep wanting to cough, so I got. Tea will help. Yes, the sweet tea will fix it. Oh yes. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and end this tea party. Didn't mean to end it on such a depressing note. Jesus, I know. Fucking terrible. Fucking terrible. But I need to go. I need to get out of here. I need to go eat some pizza because that's what I'm gonna eat. I'm gonna have some pizza. Get ready for having a kid's birthday in a bit, and yeah, I think I'm gonna sit and watch some more Mandalorian. Yes, more Mandalorian while I eat. Yes. Sounds like a fun time. Fun time. Sounds like a fun. I said. Good old Star Wars. Anyway, all right, let's do it. Let's get the hell out of here. End this tea party. And hey, just remember what I said. Right? Try and pay attention and enjoy the little things, but just, keep doing what you got to do to get through. And don't forget about all the crazy important shit going on in the world either, and that you can make a difference. And sorry if I seemed off right there because I was trying to fix the music. Oh, that was a terrible example of multitasking. No, I'm pretty good at that. Anyway, that's enough out of me. You've heard enough. Now we're getting to just where I'm starting to get all tongue twisted and all of that. Let's get out of here. Run while we can. All right, folks. As always, much love. Stay safe, stay vigilant, stay mad. Because all the best things happen. Until next time, have a great weekend. Ta-ta for now. Laters!